Good afternoon from the center of the United States. This is Duane again from the Geezer and the Young Gun channel. Finally it has arrived. The AFE Power Stage 2 Magnum Force intake system, intake kit, and we're going to conduct an install on that today. It is going to be a very short install. Doesn't take very long at all. I looked at the instructions and looked at all the parts for the intake. Very simplistic, very easy. You won't need but a couple of ratchet sockets and a screwdriver and probably maybe 30 minutes of install time. So let's get to it. Let's see what's in the box. I'm like a kid at Christmas, can't wait to open it up. So we unpacked the box. Of course, this application is for the 2017 Ford Raptor, and it is a dual intake system. I ordered my kit with the pre-oiled filters. As you can see, it's fairly simple, straightforward. I ordered the brushed aluminum, and it looks very nice. All the components are good. What I found interesting is the pre-filter kit came with the complete kit itself. A little nod to AFE. They also include a little packet of decals and a rear license plate frame. Now, of course, it is plastic, but you know, if you're proud of AFE and you like to show off what you do, what kind of modifications you've done, hey, free is always good. But as you can see, it's really well manufactured. It's going to be a really easy install. The map bone, as you can see, is welded on. No problems. I also went ahead and ordered, which is not part of the kit unless you order the dry filters, but I ordered a set of dry filters as well as a recharge kit for my oil filters. Those will come in handy through various driving conditions and things like that. So let's get to the install part. This is going to be the fun part. Can hardly wait to see the performance difference. So here we are looking at the engine bay, and you can see the stock intake, and going all the way across you can see where the intake tubes mount into the turbo inlets. The only thing we're going to have to do is really remove the top half of the intake system itself, just to this point right here and down to this point right here. Now there's one thing you're going to see inside the instructions. There is a vent tube. It's called an insert that we're going to have to place inside on the driver's side intake tube down in here. You can't really see until I get to it, but it's wrapped. It's down in here. You see where it's got that protected weaved cover. In the instructions, it's going to show you how to remove that. What we're going to do is we're going to just remove that. We don't want to take it off the truck. We're just going to uncouple it, and we're going to insert this vent tube, but we're going to make sure that the slash mark is actually facing the turbos. So, and that's going to be explained in the instructions. As I was looking over the intake, in the instructions it shows to put it all together and install it, and then go ahead and put that intake vent tube in. But what I'm going to do is, when I disassemble the intake itself, I'm going to go ahead and insert that tube while I have plenty of access. That way I'm not having to move around the new intake system itself, because it will have two separate tubes for the turbos from the intake all the way to the new or to the fittings itself. So let's make it a little bit easier on ourselves. So we will get to it at this point right here. The only thing you're going to need is some an 8mm socket to remove the clamps. All right, it's correction time. The stock Ford hose clamps are actually 7mm. As you can see, all I did was basically removed the entire top portion of the housing, and then I flipped it over because we're going to have to take the sensor out, which is just a turn. I'm not even going to bother removing the wire or anything else like that, just turning it. I'm going to remove the old hose clamps and take that top portion off. You can see that in the meantime, while I was waiting, I went ahead and installed a K&N high flow air filter in the stock air box, and I had pretty good results with it. Now I want to show you something. I'm hoping that the camera can pick it up, but down inside here in each one of the inlet tubes, this is the driver's side and that's the passenger side, there's these things that are referred to as turbo silencers. Right now the jury is still out on what exactly do they do. Do they silence the turbo, or do they provide some sort of circulation like the old tornado carburetor insert? And will it harm the motor if you remove them? I'm going to be calling Ford Performance and find out. I'm going to choose to leave mine in at this point, but if I find out that they're going to do nothing more than just silence the turbos, if you want to hear the turbo whine, then by all means, if it doesn't hurt the motor, we will go ahead and remove them. But right now the instructions don't say to remove them. Other kits do say remove them. So we'll leave that decision up to you, but I'm going to call Ford Performance and find out exactly what those do. So as you can see, that's all it took. It took about 5 minutes to get the top of that intake off. I'm going to go ahead and remove the sensor, and be very careful with that sensor. Do not get it dirty, get the wire or anything else like that messed up, because it will affect how the engine performs. Okay, so here we are. I went ahead and removed the sensor. What I did to protect that sensor is I basically took the finger off of a nitrile glove. When I'm working with oily products and stuff like that I use, I just cut it off and I covered it just to protect it that much more. Now the vent tube, you can see I've already removed it, and you can see where it connects right there. That's where it will snap into place. All this does is you just push back on these little tabs here. Don't pull them off, don't break them, because they will snap back, or if you break them, they're hard to replace. And you just slide this piece back and it will slide off over the tube itself. Again, this is the vent tube, and I'm gonna see if I can get close enough so you can see the writing on it. Let's see here, turn it, there it is. See where it says this side toward turbo? You want to make sure that it's lined up exactly right, because it will affect the performance of the vehicle. So again, remember that, read that portion of the instructions, make sure that you set that in there exactly as the instructions do tell you to do so. So now it's time to assemble the AFE Stage 2 airbox and get it all bolted and clamped back into place. Okay, here's the airbox mounted inside on top of the original stock OEM airbox itself. This is the filter mounting housing, and you can see it's got tabs and places that it's supposed to line up and go inside. There's 2 tabs that will slide into the OEM box that are part of the mounting, the brushed aluminum mounting plates, or I'm sorry, filter housing. And the snaps, the original snaps, snap into place. See if we can get it to visualize closer, much better. There we go. You can see how they snap right into place. And now we'll go ahead with the rest of the install. As I mentioned earlier, I went ahead and removed and installed the turbo vent tube and reinstalled it where it was where it goes, and that will give me plenty of room. You can see what I'm talking about because the top portion is going to have both of those intakes going across, but the instructions show that you want to do that like as one of the last things that you do. This is just a little easier process. It's a tech tip, if you will. Okay, there it is, mounted with the cover off. Wasn't too hard. One thing I do want to point out is make sure that you put these intake tubes into the filters pretty deep, and when you're tightening them, make sure that you're holding on to them, because as you tighten the clamps, the rubber will squeeze and might pop those intakes out. So that's just a little tech tip there. Everything is buttoned up in place. All the sensors, or the only one sensor, is in place. And as I was showing you before, you see how we've got the crossover tubes and stuff like that. It starts to get a little difficult to get down into that one particular vent tube that you're going to need to. But everything's tight. The only thing we're going to do now is put on the plate and give her a start. Okay, there she is, all buttoned in place. The fasteners that are used are panhead Allen screws or bolts. You'll need a 4mm Allen wrench to tighten those in place. You don't want to over tighten them, just make them so they're nice and snug. And remember, once you get everything all tightened up and you start driving it, after the first 200 miles, you want to go back and check all of your connections and make sure that everything's still nice and tight and still in place. Okay, this is going to be a video showing the in-cab sound. I don't have the radio on, air conditioning on, or anything else like that, so we can just hear how the exhaust note and the intake note sounds as we're driving down the road. Forgive the wobbliness of the video because my iPad is just kind of wedged between the dash and stuff like that. But we're not under any boost right now, and we're at about 3,500 RPMs or 3,800 RPMs. Okay, so what are my impressions? With the Borla exhaust and the new AFE dual cone intake, the Magnum Force Stage 2, it definitely gives a very good sound. It does give me a little bit more performance. The turbo lag seems to be a lot less, and that's without any tuner or anything else like that. So yeah, I'm gonna say that this is a pretty good intake and exhaust solution. When I get my tuner and the tuning program, actually I have the tuner, I just need to have the programs come out for it, and then I should be pretty good with the horsepower and whatnot. So that's my impression. I'll be driving it to Alabama next week, so I'll have a long trip and I'll do some recording then. Well, from the Geezer and the Young Gun, this was the Magnum Stage 2 intake from AFE Power. See you again next time when we get ready to install the in-fab rear bumper on the 2017 Ford Raptor. For now, keep on rapping. Okay, this is going to be under acceleration. You can hear the engine sound. going to be the engine sound with revving to the rev limiter from idle to rev limiter.